We were trying for a second child while I wasn't conceiving, and nothing was happening. Hearing that diagnosis is very isolating. They diagnosed it as POI. Okay, so here is my POI story, my POI journey. When I was in my mid-30s or so, I started to notice, and this was around COVID, I started to notice that my cycle wasn't being as regular. We were trying for a second child and nothing was happening. So I just thought that because of COVID, I did catch it twice. I thought it was maybe something to do with that, which I still believe that it possibly has something to do with it. But anyway, I ended up going to see my OBGYN at the time to discuss my symptoms, having low energy. My cycles wasn't regular. I was having difficulty losing weight. And she just chalked it up to be, oh, it's probably PCOS. Really didn't do the testing or anything, lab work for it. And I think at that time in my mid-30s, things came back normal. But I was still having symptoms. I was wondering why we were trying for a second child while I wasn't conceiving. I was under a lot of stress from a practice that I was previously at. So then I ended up switching jobs to something that was less stressful. So I think that contributed, stress levels also contributed to that as well. But I'm trying to, just because this is a very sensitive topic for me, and just trying to give you some back history of what happened. So at the time, I ended up switching practices and still nothing was happening. So we end up looking up some different fertility doctors, endocrinologists, just because I just wasn't satisfied with PCOS diagnosis that I got from, at the time, my OBGYN, just because she didn't do her due diligence as far as lab work, really digging in to see if that truly is the case for me. So I ended up going to see a specialist to determine the cause of why I couldn't conceive. So we did several lab work and treatment things to see if I could be successful with becoming pregnant, and nothing was happening. So we did 3 fertility treatments and it just wasn't aligning. And then at that time, she told me it wasn't PCOS. It was actually the opposite, that I didn't have enough of an egg reserve. And the funny thing is, my late father, who passed away, when he saw that I was pursuing higher education, he always said, you should freeze your eggs. It's going to take time for you to be done with school if you wanted to start your family, just as a backup to freeze your eggs. But at the time, I'm in my 20s. I'm not thinking about freezing my eggs. I'm just trying to get through optometry school and just get through that. At the time, in optometry school, I was with my husband. We were engaged, and then I got married in my 3rd year. But like I said, at the time, before I matriculated into optometry school, I was not thinking about that. I was thinking about my career, making sure that I could graduate, start my career, get a good job. So in hindsight, I probably should have listened when he gave me that advice to freeze my eggs. Just because when I got to my mid to late 30s, I was having difficulty getting pregnant. With my son, we didn't have any issues. My cycles was regular. I wasn't having any issues as far as the POI. And what POI is primary ovarian insufficiency. I've been doing my own research on it. So pretty much is a condition where your ovarian reserve is low. So going back to the fertility specialist, when she actually told me that my reserves were low, she didn't actually say the word primary ovarian insufficiency. I went through several testings. She gave me some medication to help me see if I can ovulate or get my cycle back on track. And it was very up and down. So the timing of it had to be very specific in order for me to go in and just do a whole bunch of of stuff. My husband hated it, by the way. He hated the whole process. He did it because of me. Of course, we both wanted more children, but it got to the point where he was just like, what? This is too much. I'm satisfied with just one child, because we didn't try for our first. It just happened. No issues. I didn't have any issues getting pregnant. So I feel like I'm all over the place, just because I'm, one, trying to recollect everything that happened, and then two, it's a touchy subject for me. So what ended up happening? So then none of the fertility treatments was working. And then at that time, we decided to take a break. We ended up traveling, doing some international trips with the family. Decided to take a whole break because it was taking a toll on my mental health and my stress levels, which contributes to the primary ovarian insufficiency. One thing that I did learn from my research is that with the primary ovarian insufficiency, it is triggered by stress. So one tip, if you are trying to get pregnant, is to find ways to lower your stress. So one was me finding a different employer. I had to change my work environment. Two, find somebody that actually knows about the condition. So this goes to my next step. So we tried the fertility specialist in Atlanta and wasn't successful. So I was just doing more research. And then I came a creator on TikTok, actually, and she was talking about ovarian rejuvenation. So pretty much they take your own blood, your own plasma, and they inject it into your ovary. That's supposed to help stimulate ovulation to help you get pregnant. She listed, I forgot what the creator's name is. It was going on 4 years ago or 3 years ago. 2 years ago. Time flies. But anyway, so I end up contacting a ovarian rejuvenation center in San Francisco. So I actually had to do some lab work, and that's when I got the diagnosis of the primary ovarian insufficiency. So the symptoms of me having low energy, the irregular cycle, my AMH, which determines your reserve, was very low. And going back to that, both the fertility specialists in Atlanta and also the one in San Francisco pretty much said I had, without any, and going back to that, both the fertility specialists in Atlanta and also the one in San Francisco pretty much said I had, without any doctor intervention, my percentage of getting pregnant was less than 1%. Hearing that diagnosis is very isolating, because you always hear about PCOS, all these other conditions where it's a little bit more common. So when I heard about primary ovarian insufficiency, I was just like, what is that? And being that I am a healthcare provider myself, that's of course not my area of expertise. I really had to do my due diligence and just research the condition. So it mimics someone who is perimenopausal or menopausal or in menopause. So I just started to notice skin changes, low energy, just all these symptoms. And I attributed to that. I was just like, well, maybe I'm perimenopausal, but because with it happening so early. So fast forward, my husband and I decided to try the ovarian rejuvenation, and we put our deposit down for the procedure. We booked our flights and plane tickets, and then with that, as I mentioned before, with the previous fertility treatments, is time specific. So when they thought that I was about to ovulate, it's unpredictable. I had to book the tickets and the hotel within a certain time frame, and when you book stuff late, it's expensive. So this is something that I wanted to do. My son kept asking for a sibling, and it's like, why am I not becoming pregnant or not able to get pregnant? What's wrong with me? It just really questioned my womanhood. So what ended up happening, when that time frame of when we were to go get that done, I don't know if you guys remember when Delta had that hole with their systems not working. I honestly feel like that was like the grace of God, because our flight got canceled. Now, and I'll come back to that. So in between that time of us about to book the ovarian insufficiency, I just prayed to God. I said, I'm thankful for the child that I do have. If it's not in your will for me to have another child, I'll just be content with where I am right now. So I just let it go and I surrendered to him. I did not have, at that point, because it was taking a toll on my mental health, it was affecting my stress levels. That summer, I just enjoyed myself. I enjoyed spending time with my family and spending time with my friends. And then I just thought I was just going to be one and done. So going back to the flight details, it ended up getting canceled. And then prior to that, I had a bachelorette, and this was within the same month. I had a bachelorette. There was supposed to be a hurricane that got canceled. So I'm just like, all my travel plans are getting canceled. Me going to the ovarian rejuvenation is getting canceled. I'm not understanding why all these plans are not following through. Even going to the movies, canceled. The movie theater shut down. It was just all these different things, but it was God telling me to stay home with my husband. Now I'm just thinking about it. And there was some things that I had to do, so reducing my stress levels. I started exercising, but not doing high impact exercising, just like walking, lifting weights, but I wasn't exerting myself. Doing the things that I love to do, spending time with family, traveling. Well, the traveling part, it fell through, but anyway. And then I also did my research, just taking certain supplements, and I'll share that in a separate video. Of course, definitely every case is different. I highly recommend that you follow up with your own doctor and go with the guidance of your own doctor, just because each case is different. But I'll be more than happy in another video to share what I took to help me, I believe, help to stable out my hormones, just because when they said that I only had less than 1% to get pregnant. So anyway, so then what ended up happening, I surrendered to God. I prayed about it. I was just like, I'm just let it go. If I'm just supposed to be a mom of one, it is what it is. And I just continued to live life. And then one weekend, just because I wasn't having my regular periods, one weekend my son came to me. We was watching a movie. He came and laid on my stomach, and he was just like, "You're pregnant." And I was just, because he's been asking for a sibling and nothing was happening, one of those things, well, God may have different plans for us, so you just have to be content with just me and your dad and being the only child. So I brushed it off and reassured him that, or let him know that, hey, it's okay if you're the only child. That's how God wanted us to be. And then he kept saying it every day that week. He kept saying it, "Mommy, you're pregnant." But because I didn't have regular periods, I didn't have a period at all at that time. I think I had a period 1 month before. So I was just like, well, maybe God could do something with 1%. But I didn't stress over it how I was previously. And so the day before, well, one day during that week, he woke up and he was just like, "Mommy, God told me that you're pregnant, and it sounds like a superhero voice." And I was just like, so he kept saying it. Mind you, I didn't have a period for 6 months at that time. I had one period prior to that. So I was like, let me just go to the dollar store and just give me a cheap little dollar store kit to see if I'm pregnant. By this time, you take so many pregnancy tests and it just getting the negative results, it does something to your mental health. So I was just like, I'm gonna just take it. If it's negative, whatever. I didn't have any expectations. So I ended up taking the pregnancy test, and lo and behold, I was pregnant naturally, conceived naturally. And that was nothing but to the grace of God. That was a miracle. From hearing that you don't have enough eggs, your AMH is low, your ovarian reserve is low. And at this time, I ended up seeing 3-4 doctors all saying the same thing, besides the first doctor who misdiagnosed me. And for that to happen, it's kind of, this is nothing but God. So that is my story. That is my testimony. And being that I was in my late 30s, I was 38 at the time, delivered at 39. Just repeating that story or just hearing that story is just like, oh my gosh, that was nothing but God. And the funny thing is, prior to me going through all this changes with my body, prior to getting the diagnosis, prior to that 2 years, maybe 4 years ago, because we were trying for 5 years, I would just write down me being a mom of 2. I wrote down my son's name, my daughter's name, and I would just like write it down. It was past, not necessarily past tense, but this is like I'm a mom of 2. And I will write that down in my book of prayers. And to read that now is just mind-blowing. I asked God for a girl, I ended up getting a girl, so I have a boy and a girl. It's just that God is so good. He is so intentional. He is so faithful. It was a miracle, because even telling my husband that I was pregnant, he couldn't believe it himself. He got used to the negative pregnancy tests all the time, that it's just like, when that happened, it was so mind-blowing. And that was nothing but the grace of God. So some things that I ended up doing was reducing my stress, taking supplements, taking care of my body. I prayed, I journaled, I fasted. With POI, if you're under stress, your body won't work in its optimal condition. So with POI, it's protecting your ovary. So I thought that, wow. Even though with this condition, it's pretty much your body trying to protect itself. So if you're under stress, if there's any that's impeding you from ovulating, it's an autoimmune condition. I still have to do my research with it. There's not a lot of doctors here in Atlanta that I found that understand it. Of course, I'm not going to travel to San Francisco to do it, but they were very helpful. They were even surprised that I got pregnant naturally, because mind you, I told you I was supposed to go, but because of the whole Delta thing, it ended up getting canceled, so we had to reschedule, and I ended up having to cancel. So the deposit that I put down, it just went to waste, but it is what it is. I still sometimes, depending on my stress levels, I guess the flare up from it or whatever. So I found a new OBGYN that is helping me to treat it, but she's more so treating it like perimenopausal symptoms. As I mentioned before, a lot of doctors don't really know about it and don't know how to really treat it. So they think it's like either you're in premature menopause or perimenopause. So yeah, so this is my journey with it. I'm still claiming that I'm healed in the name of Jesus, but I just wanted to give my testimony. I had a couple of questions about this, and I know if you've heard about, or if you've been recently diagnosed or been going through it for some years, you're not alone. Especially I didn't see any that's a woman of color discuss POI, because I went down a rabbit hole. So this is a safe space. If you know someone that's been diagnosed with this or going through this, just know that God is still a healer. He is a miracle worker. If you're trying to get pregnant, do not give up. Continue to pray. Continue to be in good spirits. Don't let this diagnosis get you down. And so this will be my journey. I am going on 1 year postpartum. It can happen for you. Probably in the next video, I feel like I've been rambling. In the next video, I'll show and share the different supplements to help me. But of course, make sure to get clearance from your doctor. This is just for informational, educational purposes. Get your lab work done. Check your hormones. If you feel like something isn't right, don't be scared to follow up with a different provider. So I hope this is helpful, and I just sending you or whoever love and light, and I hope this kind of answers some things. All right, bye.